Welcome into the Vegas Insider YouTube channel. I'm Thom Cunningham, and today we're going to be going over the upcoming English Premier League season, or the EPL as it's commonly known, as I'm joined by Liverpool's own Andrew Beasley, who's going to help break everything down. Andrew, how's it going?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Looking forward to the new season.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely ready to go. And I know all these soccer bettors are also ready to go. So right off the bat, are you going to go with Liverpool to win outright, or is Man City the team to beat still? Or is there another club in the Premier League that you're eyeing as a possible dark horse contender?
Well, to be honest, I did sort of think that Man City were deserved favourites to win the Premier League this season. But I've seen an article on Opta today which suggests that Liverpool should be favourites, which goes against what all the bookmakers are saying. Which of those teams you prefer? I mean, realistically, it is a two-horse race. I mean, if you look at the odds from the bookmakers, they suggest that Manchester City have around a 55% chance of winning the league. Liverpool, roughly half of that, 26, 27%. So once you put those together, there's not much left for the other 18 teams. You know, they've got very little chance in the eyes of the bookmakers. And to be honest, it's hard to disagree with that. I think some of them have certainly made improvements over the summer, but the gulf between themselves and Liverpool and City is just so great that it's hard to see them making it up just in this sort of one summer and one season. Obviously, this year we have the World Cup in the middle of the campaign, something that's never happened before in European football. So that's going to be unusual, and that will have an effect. Obviously, Liverpool and City will have a lot of players at the tournament in Qatar in the winter, but then so will the other top teams. So at this point, you have to assume it'll sort of affect them all. So if I had to put money on it, then I would say Manchester City. I think Liverpool can run them close again, but it's very much a two-horse race.
And I know within the top four, you have a lot more options in terms of different clubs that realistically could make the top four rather than just winning the league outright. And looking at the odds, Tottenham, Chelsea, Man U, and Arsenal are kind of the border teams right now. Only two of those four can reach the top four, assuming Man City and Liverpool finish at the top two of the table. So of those four teams, Tottenham, Chelsea, Man U, or Arsenal, which two do you like to finish in the top four this year?
Well, definitely Tottenham, because they were very impressive generally under Antonio Conte last season. And obviously he's now had a chance to shape the squad a bit more to his requirements. So I think Tottenham are very well placed to finish in the top four, and their price reflects that. I think most places have Chelsea as fourth favourites, and that's a bit less clear because they've obviously had quite a lot of upheaval this summer. They've made some good signings, Koulibaly and Raheem Sterling up front. But it's obviously quite a lot of players to embed in key positions. Obviously, they had Lukaku last season. That didn't really work. So this could be a step in the right direction. But I think there's a lot of question marks around Chelsea at the moment, which may only become clear once a few games have been played. Arsenal also look to have done some good business, but it's hard to know how well they're going to improve with having to cope with the Europa League campaign. Obviously, they didn't have any European football last season, and they still failed to finish in the top four when they're in a good position. Now, their young squad should have learned plenty from that and be better for the experience, but the sort of endless slog of playing Thursday and Sundays, as you do when you're in the Europa League, it makes it very hard. I guess the most interesting could be Manchester United, because again, they probably can't be much worse than they were last season. It was their worst points total for over 30 years. So with a manager installed who knows what he wants, and with some signings made, then they have a better chance than they had last season. They have the cloud of sort of Cristiano Ronaldo hanging over them at the moment. It's not quite sure what's going to be happening with him. And if he hangs around, he could well have a negative impact. But they probably look like the value bet from outside the two favourites of Tottenham and Chelsea as having a greater chance than Arsenal, I would say.
Let's go to the bottom of the table. We've talked a little bit about the top of the table. Let's go to the bottom now. We've got three clubs coming in off the promotion. That's Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, and Fulham. Of those teams, who do you see sticking out the most? I guess, which promoted club do you think will have the most success in the EPL this coming year?
It's a very tough one to call. I think Fulham won the title in the Championship last season, and you look at the underlying statistics, and they deserve to. They were the best team in the division. But Fulham have this thing where they sort of yo-yo between the Premier League and the Championship, and each time they come up to the Premier League, they go down, and each time they go to the Championship, they come back up. So it's hard to know if they're going to buck that trend this time and actually stay up. Obviously, they've lost Fabio Carvalho to Liverpool, who was a key player for them last season. Alexander Mitrovic always scores lots in the Championship, less so in the Premier League. Can he score enough goals? So there's certainly question marks there. I think Bournemouth are almost certainly not going to stay up. Nottingham Forest are an interesting one because they've got a very good manager, Steve Cooper, but they've done a lot of transfer business, and it's a question of how quickly can he get that new squad of players to sort of gel together and playing in the way that he wants them to. He turned Forest's form around very quickly last year when he came in after about 7 or 8 games. So it's not unreasonable to think he might be able to do it. I have a sneaking suspicion they're the best place to stay up. But as I say, he needs these new players to all kind of hit the ground running and see how they go from there. But I think he's the best coach of the three, and that could make the difference.
And looking at the odds, Nottingham Forest, they have the best odds to stay up and not be relegated of the promoted clubs. So to that, I'm looking at clubs that were in the EPL last year, but have pretty strong odds to possibly be relegated. And the top team there is Leeds. Then you have Brentford and Everton, and Southampton are kind of your 4 bottom clubs that were there last year. Of those 4, do you see any of them getting relegated? Because they're all plus value right now.
There's definitely a chance for some of them. I think the data from last season suggests Brentford should be fine. Their underlying numbers had them in the top half.
Oh, wow.
Now, obviously, with the sort of smaller clubs, they don't have the quality of players that sort of guarantee you goals or guarantee you clean sheets at the other end. So they're more susceptible to their sort of underlying process not paying out in reality. But on the face of it, their performances last season were good enough to think that they won't be in relegation trouble this year. So I wouldn't be going for them straight away. Everton are an interesting case because their manager has already come out and said they might be in danger of relegation. I mean, they really shouldn't be with the amount of money they've spent, but when so much of it has been misspent, obviously their squad is a bit of a mess. I did see something today. I think Calvert-Lewin's got another injury. I mean, if that's the case, then he'll be a big loss, particularly as Richarlison has gone to Tottenham. So if Calvert-Lewin is out, then you have to wonder where the goals are going to come from for Everton. Leeds is an interesting one. They looked like they had improved under Jesse Marsch last season, but obviously they've lost Rafinha, they've lost Calvin Phillips, 2 very key players for them. So you'd have to have some concerns with them. And Southampton are always sort of down there, and you do sort of wonder if this might be the season where they go. They often struggle for goals as well. They're another team whose underlying process isn't too bad, but they just never score enough goals, and that could well be an issue for them again. I think with probably 2 of the promoted teams likely to go down, they may well survive, but they would probably be my pick of those 4 as things stand, because I think things might have gone a little stale under their manager, Ralph Hasenhüttl, and maybe Leeds could get a fresh bit of impetus from Jesse Marsch, who's only been there a couple of months. But I think it could be, apart from Brentford, those other 3 could all certainly struggle this year, I think.
Going to the player markets, the futures and the top goal scorers is the most popular prop before the season starts for people to bet on. And I'm looking at some of the favorites, and it's kind of a surprise that Mo Salah and Harry Kane are not the favorites this year. Who do you see as the best bet to score the most goals in the EPL this season?
Yeah, I mean, Erling Haaland is the favourite in the market, and it's easy to see why, just because he's such a good striker and Manchester City create so many chances. I think it's not a guarantee that he will necessarily make them much better because they're already an incredible side. I mean, there's not much room for improvement there, but he's the sort of player who will turn their 4-0 home wins against the struggling teams into probably 6-0, 7-0, 8-0 home wins, and he'll get a hat-trick, 4 goals. So I can understand why he is the favourite. I mean, obviously, Mohamed Salah's got the track record. I think it's 3 times he's won the Golden Boot, including sharing it. So he won't be far away. He looks refreshed after the summer. he doesn't have the World Cup to contend with, whereas Harry Kane does. And also, I mean, Haaland doesn't either. But if I was picking between Salah and Kane, I think Salah's probably the better bet of the two. Beyond them, it's hard to look really beyond anyone there. I know in some places Darwin Núñez is fourth in the running, but obviously it's his first season in a top European league. He looks like he could do well, but whether he could score golden boot numbers, particularly with Jurgen Klopp having said he's not going to rush him into the side, I'm not sure he'll sort of get the 20 to 25 goals that are probably required. Beyond that, I mean, Gabriel Jesus at Arsenal, I've sort of mentioned him in previous years as a good value bet. But he has a bad record for converting his expected goals, and obviously he won't get as many chances with Arsenal as he was getting with Manchester City. So I think he's somebody who, had he stayed at City, maybe could have done it, but I'm not sure he will at Arsenal. So it's very hard to look beyond Haaland, as I say. Probably Salah is a worthy second favourite. I'm not sure of anyone beyond that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at Núñez 14-1, Son 16-1, and then it's just a big drop off right there. Sterling is next at 25-1. All right, so we've gone through pretty much all the markets we can. What is your best bet entering the EPL this season? If you had to give a soccer bettor, an expert or a novice or a rookie, doesn't matter, if they ask you what's the one EPL bet I should be making this year, what to you is that bet?
Well, I think obviously a lot of the ones we've talked about, there's very obvious favourites. And I think, a bet on Manchester City to win the league is probably going to come in. But of course, their price reflects that. I think some of the more interesting bets are if you bet on under-over points totals, or some places offer, say, a top 10 finish. Now, obviously, with the top 10 finish, you can be pretty sure that the big six clubs, the traditional big six in England, are going to take the top six places. They almost always do. As we've said, United had their worst season in 30 years last year, and they still made it. So there aren't many places in the top 10 which are up for grabs. But if you look at the data from last season, then Crystal Palace's performance suggested they should have finished sixth, but they only finished 12th. Now, they relied a lot upon Conor Gallagher, who they had on loan from Chelsea, and he's gone back, so he will be a loss. But I think with their level of performance last season and some question marks over some of the other teams, teams like Leicester who haven't made a signing this summer, and it's sort of unclear how good Newcastle are going to be as they sort of continue their rebuild under new ownership. I think Crystal Palace finishing in the top 10, again, not the hugest odds, but I think is an interesting value bet because they stand a better chance than a few of the teams who are shorter in the market than they are.
Yeah, plus 225 is what I'm looking at, and I think that's fine price for me. Absolutely, I think there's value in that for sure. Andrew, thanks so much. Real quick, where can people find you and your work on the internet?
Well, most of what I do is for the Liverpool Echo, but I also write betting previews for Paddy Power and Pinnacle and places like that, obviously VegasInsider. But if you follow me on Twitter at BaseTuneToRed, and everything I write, the links get shared there. So that's the best way to find it.
Awesome. Andrew, thanks so much. Our EPL soccer bettor. Can't wait for the World Cup in November.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be good. As I say, mid-season World Cup's unusual, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. Andrew, thanks so much. We appreciate your time.